You are not here to struggle for what you desire. You are here to call it forth. Creation is finished. Every possible reality already exists. What you long for is not something to be earned, but something to be recognized and accepted within. The moment you assume it, you begin to vibrate with its truth. You do not have to push, fight, or strain, simply become aware of being it. The great secret is effortless assumption. When you see yourself as already possessing the thing desired, the outer world rearranges itself to mirror that conviction. You don't need to manipulate conditions or people. Your imagination is the only creative power. The effort is not in doing, it is in believing. The inner acceptance of the wish fulfilled is the effortless way to creation. Close your eyes and imagine the scene that would follow the fulfillment of your desire. Hear the words of congratulation, feel the satisfaction, breathe the air of completion. Let that scene live in you until it feels natural. Do not worry about the how. That is not your concern. The state of fulfillment will draw to itself everything required for its expression. Remain faithful to your inner vision. The unseen reality you accept will solidify into the seen world. Effortless creation is not laziness. It is alignment. It is resting in the knowing that your assumption, once felt real, must manifest. So tonight, speak silently to yourself. It is done. Walk as though it were already true. The world will echo your belief, for imagination, not effort, is the only cause of creation. Creation is already finished means that every possibility, every version of your life already exists in the infinite imagination of God within you. Nothing needs to be created, it only needs to be chosen. You are not bringing something new into being. You are selecting from what eternally is. Every desire is a glimpse of an existing reality waiting for your acceptance. When you imagine and feel yourself in the state desired, you shift consciousness to that version of reality. The unseen world contains all potential outcomes, and your awareness determines which one becomes visible through faith and assumption. You manifest through inner assumption, not outer effort. Because reality responds to who you are within, not what you struggle to do without. The outer world is only a reflection of your inner state of consciousness. You may labor endlessly in the physical world, trying to change circumstances, but until the inner assumption changes, the outer remains the same. True creation begins in imagination. When you feel yourself to be the person who already possesses what you desire, that feeling becomes the seed from which all outward change grows. Outer effort often springs from doubt, a belief that something outside must be conquered or acquired. But assumption operates from faith, knowing that what is assumed inwardly must externalize. You do not force reality, you embody it. When you persist in the inner, knowing that your desire is already yours, the universe naturally rearranges itself to reflect that conviction. Every action you take will then flow effortlessly from your new state of being. The world bends to the consciousness you sustain. So the true work is invisible. It is the silent acceptance within that the dream is real, that the wish fulfilled is already your identity, waiting only for your recognition. Imagination is the only creative power, for everything that exists first lived in the unseen realm of thought and feeling. The entire visible world is nothing more than the shadow cast by man's inner vision. Every invention, every discovery, every event in your life began as a concept within consciousness. You may believe that circumstances shape your life, but in truth, it is your imagination that gives birth to those very circumstances. Whatever you hold as real within, whatever scene you dwell upon with feeling and conviction, must externalize itself in form. Imagination is not mere fantasy, it is divine activity. It is God operating within man. When you imagine, you are not pretending. You are creating the unseen cause of future experience. There is no limit to this power except the limit of your belief. When you dare to imagine yourself as greater, richer, freer, or more loved, you are calling forth that version of reality from the infinite field of potential. The world will faithfully mirror the pattern of thought and emotion you sustain. You need not strive to make it happen. Creation is complete the moment the inner scene feels natural. Persist in the inner vision, and all outer facts must conform. Every time you imagine with intensity and faith, you move into a new state of consciousness, and that state must externalize. You become what you contemplate. The secret of all manifestation lies in the disciplined use of imagination, to live inwardly in the end, to feel the reality of the wish fulfilled, and to trust that what you have accepted in imagination will harden into fact. Imagination is the creative center of your being, the silent cause behind every visible effect. Shaping your world moment by moment through the power of your inner vision feeling is the secret to manifestation, because the universe does not respond to words, effort, or wishful thinking. It responds to the vibration of your inner state. Feeling is the language of creation. It is the bridge between the invisible idea and the visible form. When you feel something deeply, when your entire being moves in harmony with the emotion of having it, you impress that reality upon your subconscious mind. The subconscious, being the womb of creation, accepts whatever feeling you sustain as truth and reproduces it faithfully in your outer world. Thought alone is powerless until it is felt as real. You may affirm endlessly that you are rich, loved, or successful, yet if the feeling of lack remains, you will continue to manifest that lack. Feeling is the acceptance, the conviction that the desired state is already yours. It is not about pretending or forcing emotion. It is about quiet confidence, a natural ease that comes from knowing it is done. When you imagine your desire fulfilled and allow the joy, peace, or relief of that fulfillment to fill your body, you fuse imagination with emotion, and creation is set in motion. The moment you feel it, creation is complete on the unseen level. The outer manifestation simply unfolds according to the depth and persistence of that inner feeling. It is not effort that brings results, but emotional alignment with the end state. The feeling of the wish fulfilled is the key that unlocks every door because it places you in vibrational harmony with your desire. You are not waiting for it, you are living from it. To feel successful is to become success itself. To feel loved is to radiate love. To feel abundant is to open the flow of abundance. Feeling is the secret because it dissolves the separation between desire and fulfillment. It allows you to enter the state of having now rather than longing for it later. The more natural that feeling becomes, the faster it materializes. The world is an obedient mirror reflecting the inner tone of your emotions. To master feeling is to master life itself. For the feeling you hold within determines the reality you call forth into existence. The how is never your concern because the mechanism of manifestation belongs to a higher intelligence operating through your imagination and faith. When you decide what you want and assume it is already yours, the creative power within you begins to orchestrate events, people, and circumstances in ways far beyond the limits of your reasoning mind. The human intellect tries to plan, calculate, and control every step, yet creation unfolds in perfect harmony without your interference. Your only task is to remain faithful to the end, to the feeling of the wish fulfilled. The moment you worry about how it will happen, you step out of faith and back into doubt, breaking the invisible current of creation. The how is the business of the unseen world, not of the conscious mind. It is the domain of the subconscious, which molds outer reality according to the pattern of your inner assumption. When you persist in the state of fulfillment, life arranges itself with astonishing precision to reflect your inner conviction. Paths open, opportunities appear, and people you have never met become instruments of your manifestation. Yet these movements are invisible to logic. The intellect cannot trace them, for imagination works through the law of divine correspondence. What you are within must appear without. Many fail because they try to manipulate the process. They pray for a desire, then immediately begin to question. How will this happen? Who will make it possible? What must I do? These questions are rooted in fear, not faith. True faith rests in the knowing that the assumption contains within itself everything necessary for its fulfillment. The same intelligence that conceived the desire will fulfill it through perfect means. You are not required to outline the method, nor can you. The creative power is infinite and knows countless ways to express your assumption into form. When you plant a seed, you do not dig it up each day to see if it grows. You trust the process. So it is with imagination. Once you have sown the seed of assumption in the fertile soil of feeling, leave it undisturbed, live as though it were already done. Your only responsibility is to sustain the inner conviction and to reject every appearance that contradicts it. The moment you cease worrying about the method, the manifestation moves swiftly toward you. The how is revealed naturally, step by step, through inspired action and effortless flow. The outer world is merely an echo of your inner state, and when the inner is firm, the outer must conform. Do not chase outcomes. Embody the result within and allow life to show you its miraculous intelligence. You will find that what once seemed impossible comes to pass through, means you could never have devised. Trust the unseen process completely, for imagination knows the way where reason sees none. Assume the wish fulfilled until it feels natural. For only when the assumption becomes a living reality within you does it begin to express itself outwardly. The process of manifestation is not about convincing the outer world to change. It is about persuading yourself inwardly that the change has already occurred. You are not creating something new. You are simply shifting awareness to the version of reality where your desire is already true. This shift is achieved through the art of assumption, living and feeling from the end, inhabiting mentally and emotionally the state of the wish fulfilled until it feels as normal and effortless as breathing. In the beginning, the assumption may feel unnatural, forced, or even imaginary. The mind may resist, reminding you of the apparent facts that contradict your desire. But persistence is the secret. The more you return to the inner scene, the more real it becomes. Repetition transforms imagination into conviction, and conviction becomes your new state of being. When the feeling of the wish fulfilled takes root deeply enough, you cease to desire because you no longer feel lack. You rest in a quiet certainty, knowing that what you have accepted inwardly must externalize in due time. The naturalness of a state is the key to its manifestation. You can only experience externally what feels natural internally. When you assume wealth and it feels like pretending, you are not yet in the state. But when the idea of being wealthy feels ordinary, inevitable, and natural, you have moved into that consciousness. The same law applies to love, health, success, or freedom. You cannot attract from effort or striving, you manifest through the feeling of being. Nature expresses effortlessly, and so must you. The goal is not to force belief, but to relax into it until it becomes your identity. Imagine nightly before sleep that your wish is already realized. Let the scene unfold in your mind as though you were living it now. Feel the emotions that would naturally arise if your desire were complete: relief, gratitude, joy, fulfillment, and let those emotions saturate your being. Do not concern yourself with outer facts or the passage of time. Time only exists to bridge the unseen assumption with its visible counterpart. If you remain faithful to your inner vision, the outer must eventually conform, for consciousness is the only reality. The feeling of naturalness is the signal that your inner world has shifted. You no longer look for proof, you simply know. You begin to speak, think, and act as one who already possesses the thing desired, not because you are pretending, but because you are living from that new state of consciousness. The effort disappears, replaced by calm assurance. This is the state of fulfillment Neville Goddard called living in the end. When you live in the end, you are no longer waiting for the desire, you are resting in it. Assuming the wish fulfilled until it feels natural dissolves all resistance, because it erases the separation between you and the thing sought. The subconscious accepts the assumption as truth, and once accepted, it must express itself. The bridge of incidents will appear, guiding you naturally toward its realization. You may not recognize the steps as they unfold, but when you look back, you will see how perfectly every event led you to the fulfillment of your assumption. Persist gently, faithfully, without effort or strain. Continue to assume until the new state feels so real that you forget it was once a desire. The outer world mirrors the inner world, because reality is not something happening to you. It is something flowing from you. Every event, every encounter, every condition you experience is a reflection of your dominant inner state. The thoughts you consistently dwell upon, the emotions you allow to linger, and the assumptions you hold as true combine to create the invisible pattern from which your outer world is woven. Nothing comes to you that does not first exist within you. The world is your mirror, faithfully reflecting the contents of your consciousness, showing you in form what you have accepted in feeling and belief. Most people believe the outer world causes their inner reactions, but the truth is the reverse. Your reactions reveal your state of being, and your state determines the circumstances of your life. When you are filled with fear, you attract experiences that justify fear. When you live in faith, the world rearranges itself to confirm your confidence. You cannot escape your inner assumptions, for they shape everything you perceive. Change the cause within, and the effect without must follow. It is a divine law that the outer must reflect the inner, because the outer is born of it. If you look around and see lack, conflict, or rejection, you are witnessing the echo of inner disharmony. You are never punished by the world. You are only shown what you believe about yourself. This realization is not meant to condemn, but to empower, for it means you hold the key to every change you desire. You no longer have to beg, strive, or manipulate circumstances. You simply turn inward, alter your assumptions, and persist until your new feeling of reality becomes natural. The mirror must then adjust, for it has no life of its own. When you cultivate love within, love appears around you. When you assume abundance, opportunities arise effortlessly. The world is malleable, responsive, and obedient to the tone of your consciousness. It is not separate from you, it is you made visible. Life does not reflect what you want, it reflects who you are being. Every person and event acts as a messenger, showing you where your inner vibration stands. When you shift inwardly, those same people and events either transform or fade away, for they no longer correspond to your new frequency. The outer mirror can be harsh at times because it reveals with precision what we would rather ignore. But it is through this mirror that growth occurs. If you can observe your world calmly and see it as feedback rather than judgment, you can use every situation as a tool of transformation. When something undesirable appears, instead of resisting it, ask yourself, what belief within me is this reflecting? Then, in imagination, assume the state that contradicts the unwanted reflection. Feel within what it would be like if harmony, peace, and fulfillment were already true. The moment you shift that feeling, the mirror begins to change. You never change the reflection by touching the mirror. You change it by altering the image that the mirror reflects. The same principle governs life. The outer world has no power of its own. It is neutral, a blank screen upon which the film of your inner state is projected. To fight the outer is to fight your own shadow. To transform it, you must change the light within. This is the essence of spiritual mastery, to recognize yourself as the source, not the victim of your experiences. As you refine your inner world through imagination, faith, and persistence, you will notice the outer world bending to match it. Relationships heal, opportunities multiply, health is restored, and peace becomes your atmosphere. Nothing is impossible when you remember that everything you see begins as a thought and feeling inside you. The outer is only a delayed reflection of the inner, and the delay is your gift of time, allowing you to adjust your consciousness before manifestation solidifies. The world is your mirror, not your enemy. It reveals, teaches, and reflects the story you tell yourself in the silence of your mind. Choose to see beauty, and beauty will appear. Choose to feel abundance, and abundance will surround you. The secret of transformation lies not in rearranging the reflections, but in mastering the image projected from within. When the inner is aligned with love, faith, and confidence, the outer world must bow in harmony, for it can only mirror what you are in consciousness. Effortless belief aligns you with your desire, because true manifestation is not a battle of willpower, but a quiet surrender into knowing. It is not through strain or repeated effort that you bring your desire to life, but through the calm acceptance that what you seek is already yours. Belief is alignment, an invisible bridge that connects the unseen with the seen. When belief becomes effortless, you no longer question, struggle, or doubt. You rest in the feeling of completion, and that feeling is the creative force that shapes your reality. The universe responds not to your effort, but to your state of being, and belief is the purest expression of that state. To believe effortlessly is to live from the end rather than toward it. It means to stop reaching and start embodying. You cease to think of your desire as something distant or uncertain, and instead you occupy it within yourself. You become one with it in consciousness. The moment you accept it as true inwardly, your outer world begins to rearrange itself to match that assumption. This process happens naturally, without struggle, because consciousness is self-fulfilling. Whatever you hold as real within must externalize itself in form, for reality has no choice but to mirror the conviction of your inner state. Effortless belief cannot be forced because forcing implies resistance. When you try to believe, you are actually affirming disbelief. True belief arises from stillness, from faith in the unseen, from the quiet confidence that the law of assumption never fails. It is a relaxed awareness, not an intense effort. You cultivate this state by repeatedly returning to the feeling of the wish fulfilled until it becomes your natural dwelling place. Each time you inhabit that state, you weaken the grip of doubt and strengthen the reality of your desire. Eventually, it feels more real to you than the evidence of the senses. And that is the point of alignment. Alignment is not about attracting something external. It is about harmonizing with what already exists in consciousness. Every possible reality is already created, waiting for your awareness to enter it. Belief is the act of tuning into the frequency of that reality, just as a radio aligns with a station by matching its vibration. Effortless belief means you are no longer oscillating between wanting and having, between faith and fear. You are stable in knowing. This stability of inner state produces harmony in the outer world. Circumstances begin to move with grace. Synchronicities appear and paths open effortlessly because you are no longer working against your own desire through doubt or contradiction. The more natural your belief feels, the faster your desire manifests. You are not convincing the universe, you are convincing yourself, and once self-conviction is complete, creation is inevitable. Belief is creative acceptance, and acceptance requires no struggle. When you believe effortlessly, you surrender the how, the timing, and the conditions. You trust that the unseen intelligence of imagination knows how to bring it to pass. Faith is the quiet awareness that creation is finished, and your only role is to rest in the assumption of its fulfillment. You cultivate effortless belief through the practice of inner stillness. Spend time daily in imagination, not to wish but to live from the end. Close your eyes and feel yourself already in possession of your desire. Experience the relief, the gratitude, the ease that would accompany that fulfillment. Let the feeling saturate your being until it becomes familiar. The more familiar it feels, the less effort belief requires. It becomes your new normal, your natural vibration. And when something feels natural, it must express itself effortlessly in the outer world. Doubt thrives on effort, but faith flourishes in ease. When you try to force belief, you affirm that what you desire is distant. When you allow belief, you affirm that it is here. The law of consciousness does not respond to striving, it responds to knowing. Knowing is effortless because it requires no proof. When you know something is true, you do not argue with appearances. You rest in the invisible certainty that reality will align. That still confidence is the foundation of effortless manifestation. To believe effortlessly is to stand in the awareness of your divine creative power. It is the realization that you and your desire are one, that the state you occupy inwardly is the cause of all outward expression. You do not need to manipulate events or control outcomes. Life is self-adjusting, and once your belief is steady, it moves all things to fulfill it. The bridge of incidents unfolds naturally, leading you step by step toward the visible reflection of your inner assumption. Effortless belief is not laziness, it is mastery. It is the art of inner surrender, the ability to remain faithful to the unseen vision despite what the senses report. It is the quiet conviction that the unseen is more real than the seen. When you live from that knowing, your outer world becomes fluid, malleable, and obedient to your imagination. Everything you once chased begins to move toward you, drawn by the magnetic power of your calm certainty. You become the still point around which circumstances revolve. When belief is effortless, life unfolds with grace. There is no resistance, no fear, no doubt. only the serene awareness that what you desire is already true in consciousness. And because consciousness is the only reality, that truth must one day take form. Your work is not to make it happen, but to be it now, to live, feel, and rest in the assumption of its fulfillment until it feels like the most natural thing in the world. Faith in imagination brings manifestation, because imagination is the creative center of all existence, and faith is the power that gives it life. Imagination without faith remains an idle dream. But when faith animates imagination, it becomes the force that shapes reality. Everything you see around you, every building, invention, or circumstance, was first imagined and then believed in before it appeared in the world. Faith is the invisible substance that bridges the unseen and the seen, the spiritual and the physical, the inner vision and its outward expression. To have faith in imagination is to recognize that the unseen world of thought and feeling is the true cause of everything that appears in the external world. When you imagine something and believe in its reality, you are planting a seed in the fertile soil of consciousness. The subconscious mind accepts what you impress upon it through feeling and faith, then expresses it in form without effort or struggle. The key is unwavering trust in the creative process, believing that what you have imagined already exists in the invisible realm and must, by law, appear in the visible. Faith does not beg or doubt, it simply knows. It is a quiet certainty that your assumption is already fulfilled, and this knowing compels the universe to mirror that conviction in tangible form. To have faith in imagination means to give more weight to the unseen vision than to the evidence of the senses. The senses show what already is, but imagination reveals what can be. Faith is what allows you to walk by vision rather than by sight. It is the courage to hold firmly to your inner picture, even when the outer world contradicts it. The outer world is only a reflection, a shadow of past beliefs, and it cannot persist once faith has taken root in a new assumption. Faith, therefore, is creative loyalty. It is the refusal to abandon your inner conviction, no matter how things appear. When you imagine with faith, you align yourself with divine law. You understand that God, the creative power within, operates through your imagination. The moment you dare to believe that what you have imagined is real, creation begins to move toward its completion. You need not force events, you need only sustain faith. Faith transforms imagination from fantasy into fact. It is not the vividness of the image that creates, it is the faith behind it. You can imagine endlessly, but if you do not feel the truth of your vision, nothing will change. When faith and imagination unite, manifestation becomes inevitable. The world is filled with people who imagine great things, but do not believe in their power to bring them forth. Their imagination is bound by doubt. They see their desires as distant possibilities rather than present realities. Faith dissolves that distance. It declares, it is already done. Faith is the acceptance of your desire as present, the recognition that your imagined scene is not a wish, but a fact in consciousness. Once accepted as fact within, it must externalize itself, for the outer world is powerless to resist the conviction of faith. Faith is not blind, it is visionary. It sees with the eyes of the spirit what the eyes of flesh cannot yet behold. When you have faith in your imagination, you no longer seek evidence to believe, you believe to create evidence. The world rearranges itself to match your inner certainty. Doors open where none seemed to exist. People, circumstances, and events align in ways that defy logic. Faith is the law of correspondence in motion, as within, so without. What you hold true within the temple of your imagination becomes the pattern that life follows. To live by faith in imagination requires discipline. It means withdrawing your attention from appearances and giving it wholly to your inner vision. Each time doubt arises, you gently return to the feeling of the wish fulfilled. You remind yourself that imagination is reality, and that time only serves to bridge the unseen cause and its visible effect. You persist in faith, not because you are forcing belief, but because you know that imagination, once felt real, must manifest. Faith keeps the inner image alive, nourished by feeling, until the moment it hardens into fact. Faith is the soul's deep assurance that imagination creates reality. It is the inner conviction that you are already what you wish to be. When you have faith, You no longer struggle to become. You rest in being. You cease to wonder when or how, for you understand that creation is already complete. Faith lifts you above the limitations of logic and time. It anchors you in the eternal present where all possibilities exist. You live from the end rather than striving toward it. When faith in imagination becomes absolute, fear loses its grip. You stop doubting the power within and begin to trust the unseen intelligence that governs all life. You understand that your imagination is divine, that it is God operating through you, and that what you dare to assume in faith will unfold in perfect order. You do not have to manipulate the process or struggle to make it happen. Faith allows you to rest in the knowing that what you have accepted in imagination will find its way to you in the most natural manner. The degree of your faith determines the speed and ease of manifestation. When you believe without effort, creation becomes effortless. Faith removes resistance, dissolves anxiety, and aligns you perfectly with your desire. It allows you to live in harmony with the unseen law that governs all things. The more you trust your imagination, the more obedient the outer world becomes. Every miracle ever recorded, every great achievement, every transformation began as an act of faith in imagination. To practice faith in imagination is to live as a creator rather than a reactor. You cease blaming circumstances and begin shaping them from within. You realize that the world is your mirror, showing only what you have imagined and believed. With faith, you can transform any condition, heal any situation, and manifest any desire. You no longer depend on the outer for validation because you know that reality flows from the inner. Faith gives substance to your unseen vision and transforms it into form. Faith in imagination brings manifestation because it activates the divine creative law within you. It is the key that unlocks every door, the bridge between desire and fulfillment, the power that turns invisible dreams into tangible realities. When you live by faith, you live as the image and likeness of God, the creator of worlds unseen and seen. You imagine, believe, and rest, knowing that what is real within must one day stand before you as the outer reflection of your unwavering faith live from the end. It is already done. For to live from the end is to step into the consciousness of completion, to rest in the knowing that your desire is not something to achieve, but something to accept as already fulfilled within yourself. The end is not a distant goal. It is a state of being that exists here and now in imagination. You do not reach it through effort, struggle, or time. You enter it through awareness. The secret of creation is not to become, but to be. The moment you assume the feeling of the wish fulfilled and make it natural, you align with the state that contains your desire, and reality has no choice but to conform. Living from the end is the art of inwardly inhabiting the reality you seek until it becomes your dominant vibration. Most people live toward the end. They are always becoming, always hoping, always chasing. They see their desires as future events, separate from the present moment. But when you live toward the end, you confess that you do not yet have it, and this confession of lack keeps it perpetually distant. Living from the end means moving beyond hope into certainty, beyond desire into possession. You act, think, and feel from the awareness that the thing you want is already yours. You begin to walk, speak, and live as though it were true, because in consciousness, it is. The outer world lags behind, reflecting only what you have already accepted within. To live from the end is to stop waiting for the world to change, and to realize that the change begins in you. When you live from the end, you inhabit the emotional atmosphere of your fulfilled desire. You do not imagine the steps to get there, you imagine yourself already there. If you desire love, you dwell in the feeling of being loved now. If you desire abundance, you live in the sense of freedom and satisfaction now. If you desire success, you feel the confidence and gratitude now. You are not trying to create those feelings through effort. They arise naturally when you mentally place yourself in the end. The law of assumption states that whatever you assume to be true within must become true without. Therefore, the feeling of the wish fulfilled is the creative act itself. Once you sustain that inner knowing, the unseen world begins to move, and every necessary bridge of incidents unfolds to lead you toward the visible realization of your inner state. Living from the end is not pretending or denying reality. It is recognizing that consciousness is the only reality. The outer world is nothing more than a shadow cast by your inner assumptions. You do not fight the shadow, you change the light. When you shift your state of being, everything else adjusts. This is why Neville Goddard taught that imagination creates reality. The moment you enter the state of your wish fulfilled, you have created its cause, and the effect must follow. The world cannot resist the pull of a sustained assumption. It must organize itself in perfect harmony with your inner conviction. In practice, living from the end requires persistence and faith. The senses will tempt you to believe in appearances. You may see no visible evidence of your desire, yet this is when your inner conviction must be strongest. Faith is loyalty to the unseen reality. When you live from the end, you are no longer a slave to appearances. You are master of them. You understand that the outer is delayed reflection, not cause. You no longer react to what is, because you know that what is seen is temporary, but what is imagined is eternal. You hold fast to the feeling of fulfillment until it becomes so natural that you forget the desire ever existed as something apart from you. Then, when the outer manifestation appears, it feels like the most natural thing in the world, an echo of what you already knew to be true. To live from the end also means to let go of the question, how? The how belongs to the unseen intelligence that governs all creation. When you decide what you want and assume its fulfillment, the creative power within begins to orchestrate everything necessary to express that assumption. You do not need to control the method, people, or circumstances involved. You simply maintain your inner state. Life itself becomes your servant, aligning every detail according to your inner command. When you interfere by doubting or worrying, you disturb the process. But when you remain calm in faith, the unseen works perfectly, bringing your assumption to pass through the path of least resistance. Living from the end transforms your entire relationship with time. You stop waiting for tomorrow to deliver what you can claim today in consciousness. Time becomes irrelevant because creation is finished. Every possibility already exists, and the state you occupy determines which version of reality you experience. The end you imagine is not a distant event to reach through effort. It is a dimension of consciousness you can enter right now. The moment you feel the reality of the wish fulfilled, you have stepped into that timeline. The outer world will catch up, but you already live in the end. The feeling of naturalness is the key. You must dwell in your desired state until it no longer feels like pretending. The more natural the feeling becomes, the more certain the manifestation. You are not waiting for evidence, you are cultivating inner familiarity. As you persist, your thoughts, emotions, and behaviors begin to reflect that new identity effortlessly. You no longer ask, when will it come? Because you are already living it inwardly. This detachment from time and effort signals true alignment. Manifestation flows effortlessly when you no longer seek it because you already feel it as done. Living from the end is not about visualizing every detail or repeating affirmations mindlessly. It is about shifting identity. You become the version of yourself who already has the desire. From that state, everything you do flows naturally. Your actions are not forced. They are inspired and harmonious. You no longer act to get something. You act from having it. This distinction is the secret of effortless creation. The world mirrors your identity, not your effort. When you are inwardly secure in the feeling of fulfillment, life moves with grace. People appear, opportunities unfold, and conditions align with precision because you are no longer divided between wanting and being. This inner alignment produces a quiet power. You cease to chase, to strive, or to fear. You rest in awareness that what is true within must reveal itself without. The moment you live from the end, your energy changes. You radiate certainty, peace, and joy. The world senses this inner confidence and responds in kind. Life becomes cooperative instead of resistant. Every experience begins to reflect your new state of being. You understand at last that the outer world has never been against you. It has only ever been your own consciousness projected outward. Living from the end means embodying the truth that everything you desire already exists within you, waiting for your recognition. It means knowing that you are the source, not the seeker of your fulfillment. It is the spiritual art of acceptance, the realization that the wish fulfilled is not something to achieve, but something to assume and feel until it becomes the only reality you know. When you live from that awareness, the need to struggle disappears. You walk in quiet assurance, knowing that your world is simply catching up to who you have already decided to be. You no longer live in hope. You live in knowing, and knowing is creation.